Hello everyone. Waiting on my connections to look good before I get started. Let's see. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Rachel here today talking to you about choice of provider. So this is choice of care provider during pregnancy and for your birth. So first, introduce myself. I'm Rachel. I am the owner of Your Birth Site. I'm a Lamaze certified childbirth educator. I'm a birth doula, mama to 2 boys. When I'm not serving birthing families and talking about childbirth and teaching classes, you can find me outdoors, hiking. I love playing outside with my boys in the yard. I also really love yoga, try and do that a few times a week. Favorite food would be anything with dark chocolate and peanut butter together, preferably an ice cream. So a little bit about me. I've been serving birthing families since 2014. I have a massive passion for helping birthing families along for the entire birthing year. It's a pretty important time, very transformative, and my goal is to bring some knowledge and share some new ways of thinking about this time for you and help you have the birth you deserve. So today, again, talking about choice of provider, and I like to say I'm flipping the script on the conversation, and I'm inviting you to consider all your available options with some information and considering some thought exploration. So we know that 95% of people will give birth in a hospital setting, most likely with an obstetrician or OB. Why are so many people birthing with OBs at a hospital? It goes way back. There's a whole history behind it, but more importantly, why is the trend still this way? So an obstetrician or OB they're a specialist. They are trained to identify issues and fix them. They're also trained in surgery. They are life-saving. Obstetricians, OBs can absolutely help situations when it's needed. So this is not a conversation to knock obstetricians at all. It's understanding that they are a trained specialist, trained to identify issues, trained to use technology to help save lives. So my question is, though, if you are normal, low risk pregnancy, why are we seeing a specialist? So many of birthing people seeing a specialist to help them along their journey into motherhood. So an example I like to share is, do you see a pulmonologist if your lungs are working properly? Or do you see a cardiologist if your heart is beating normally? No, we don't. So why are we seeing a pregnancy specialist who's trained in surgery for a physiological event that happens normally, that unfolds without complication most of the time? So that's just something I want you to consider along as we're having this conversation. And I know many of you might say that you want an obstetrician just in case, right? And that's normal. I get it. I've been there. That's a very real thought process, and you want to be safe, and you want your baby to be safe, and you feel like you want to be with like the highest specialized person to ensure nothing goes wrong. So I fully understand that might be a reason you want to see an OB during your pregnancy and birth. You also might want to see an obstetrician because they've been your OBGYN since you were 16, and you have a relationship with them, and they love you and they care about you and you love them. But are they the best person to support you for your pregnancy and birth? And I know this might be hard for you to consider because it's a relationship maybe that you've had for a long time. But I do. Part of this conversation I'm having is inviting you to consider what it might look like to not choose the specialist unless it's necessary. And you can always return to your GYN that you've known since you were 16 after the birth, right? And I don't want you to worry about hurting anyone's feelings. That's not a priority. Like, other people's feelings about who you give birth with is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is for you and your baby. And my responsibility is to give you the information about your available options and help you consider doing it differently, so that you can have a safe, healthy, happy birth, one that you feel great about no matter how it unfolds. So let's see, where am I at on my, I'm following an outline so that I don't lose my train of thought because I tend to get very wordy. So something else I want to share with you about obstetricians and their training is for many of them, part of their training does not include supporting normal, unmedicated, like physiological birth. Again, they focus more on identifying issues, fixing issues, surgery. So if you're wanting, a birth, whether you want an epidural or not, this is not about like having an unmedicated birth, but they have not maybe had a lot of training in physiological birth. And you might be assuming that because they're the specialists, they have all this training, or that they've witnessed a lot of unmedicated, physiological birth. And that's not always the case. If you ask them about their experience with supporting the normal birth process, again, even if you want pain medication or even if you want to birth in a hospital, you still want a provider who can support the normal physiological birth process and only use intervention when it's needed. That's the key here. This is not about doing it without an epidural, doing it unmedicated, doing it, a certain way. It's about choosing a care provider who will support the normal physiological birth process best. And then knowing when you need the specialist, we bring them in, right? It's not about like avoiding the obstetrician or the surgeon at all. So, and like midwives, they are trained. They spend all their training in supporting normal physiological birth. So part of my conversation today is talking about the obstetrician, but also talking about the midwife, because that's the other care provider who you're most likely going to have as an option to support you during your birth. And some people feel like the midwife isn't as trained, and they are. They have the same training as a doctor minus the surgery, minus the surgeon part, right? And so, but they have more training in supporting the normal birth process, right? Avoiding interventions, making it safe, giving individualized care, a hands-off approach until it's needed. And they're trained in identifying issues and problems so that they can be addressed, and then they have ways to address them, and then they know when to seek the help from the specialist. It's a mutual relationship, and it works better and it serves more people when the relationship between an OB and a midwife is integrated. We live in a culture and a world where these relationships are often not integrated, and that actually creates a birthing environment that's not ideal or safe for birthing people. So I want to talk about this so that we can bring attention to it and understand that if you are low risk and healthy, then birthing with a midwife at a hospital, at a birth center, or at home is something I want you to consider. Not like have to do, but to consider what that might look and feel like for you. And then know that if you're not healthy and low risk, that an obstetrician is who you need to be with. I also want to share or ask a question about how you view birth. You, the birthing person, have you considered your view on birth? Do you view it as a medical emergency, one that needs to be managed with technology? Or do you view it as a normal process that happens for lots of people, has been happening for a long time, and unfolds most of the time without complication or without needing intervention? So which of those two, what's your view on birth? I really, really think that's important for you to consider, instead of just assuming because everyone has done it one way, or that everyone does it this one way, that that's the way you should give birth, or that that's best for you. That's the other thing, is that we assume, well, this is how everyone's doing it, that that's the best, safest place for me to be. So again, what's your view on birth? I want you to really think about that and explore what your perception of birth is, and does your provider align with that? Does the provider you've chosen align with your view on birth? And if not, then how can you get with a provider or get on the same page with your provider about your view on birth? And I know you're thinking, well, what if something goes wrong, Rachel? Then what? Is the midwife going to know what to do? And I kind of explained that a moment ago, that yes, the midwife is very well trained in identifying issues and knowing what to do, and then also knowing when to seek the specialist help. So just trust in that, and ask questions too. Like if you're interviewing a midwife, ask them how they handle issues when they arise. So if something goes wrong, the midwife is trained to identify, trained to treat, and then trained to seek additional help if needed. And obstetricians are life-saving if needed, right? So I'm thankful we have them in our hospitals. And even if you give birth at home and you need to transfer to the hospital, the obstetrician is there and can help. We are currently in an environment where our cesarean birth rate is really high. So 1 in 3 women will give birth via cesarean birth, and about 10 to 15% of those are necessary. So that means we have about double the rate of what is necessary currently in our country. So we have most people seeking care during pregnancy from a trained specialist, the surgeon, the obstetrician. And then we have a cesarean birth rate that's double what it should be. So I feel like we can help reduce the rate of cesareans by choosing wisely who we choose to see during pregnancy. Again, 30%, 1 in 3 will have birth via a cesarean, and only about 10 to 15% actually need it. So how do we shrink that gap? How do we ensure that only people who need a cesarean are getting a cesarean? I think part of that is choosing our care provider wisely, and choosing to birth if you are low risk, if you are otherwise healthy, choosing or considering your options to birth or seek care from a midwife, either hospital-based or home birth-based. Thank you for your patience as I'm turning the page here. Talking about cesarean, there are a lot of variables there, and I feel like that's a whole conversation for a different day. There's a lot of layers, a lot of variables, a lot of things to consider, ways to decrease your risk, information you need to know. So I will add that to my list of topics to talk about. But for today, I'm going to just focus on flipping the script on choice of provider. So I've posed a few questions for you to consider. I really want you to explore your answers further, to listen to your intuition and follow it. I want you to consider what it might look and feel like to give birth at a hospital, to give birth at a birth center, to give birth at home. Like really sit with that and think about what it might look and feel like. And if you're like, I have no clue what those look like, then you can go online, you can go on YouTube and look for birth, unmedicated birth or epidural birth at a hospital and at a birth center and at home, and watch and see the environment, see what the people are saying, see how the women are laboring, and see what resonates with you. See where you think you might feel your safest, feel your best, feel comfortable, feel private. Because when we feel that way, our labor is more likely to unfold more smoothly. So I really want you to identify with a birthing space and a provider that you feel best with, because that's where your labor is going to, go really well. But for most people, birth unfolds smoothly when it's protected, when it's private, when it's quiet, when it's safe, when it's comfortable, when we're free to make sounds and move as we need to. So I want you to, if you've never witnessed a birth that looks like that, go explore what that looks like and see if that resonates with you. And if you're like, could that be for me? I don't know. And if not, at least you weighed all the options. That's my goal, is for you to weigh the options, to know there are options, and to know that you don't have to do it just because your best friend did it or your mom did it a certain way, that you can birth out on your own terms. And I feel like we are more confident and healthy when we become the decision maker in this process. So that's why I'm giving you this information, to help you become the decision maker, to seek the support and the information you need to have the best birth available to you. And if you are low risk and healthy, birthing with a midwife at a birth center or at home or even in a hospital are perfectly safe options. I all too often hear people say, well, I haven't considered a midwife because I just don't trust that they have the same training. And I think that this is a complete fallacy, and it's just misinformed. It's just because it's not as common, but they do have the training. And if you're not sure, you don't believe me, you're just not sure, ask. Meet with a midwife, either a hospital midwife or a home birth midwife or birth center midwife, and have the conversation, same conversation you had with your obstetrician about your birth expectations, your questions, and see what information they give you, see how it makes you feel. And then again, you can make a decision that's best for you. And I understand most people will still give birth in a hospital. That's currently where we're at, and that's fine. This is not about flipping everyone over to out of hospital. But my goal is to help shift the perspective, shift the conversation even just an inch, spark some curiosity in your mind, give you some information that helps you think, is that for me? And if you say, after my class, if you feel like that, is this for me? If you have that thought, then I'm doing my job. I'm planting a seed of curiosity. I'm giving you information that I know will help you have a better, safer, happier birth experience. And when you can have that, you're entering motherhood on the right foot. And that lasts for a lifetime. So it's important. So just to recap, questions to consider. What is your view on pregnancy and birth? Do you believe birth and pregnancy are like a medical emergency and should be managed? Or do you believe it's a normal physiological event that will unfold without complication for most of the time and needs little intervention? So which of those two views do you have for pregnancy and birth? So the other thing to consider is, are you low risk and otherwise healthy? Or are you high risk? Are there risk factors? Again, everyone is different, and everyone comes into pregnancy and birth with their own set of circumstances. So if you're low risk and otherwise healthy, that's one thing I want you to know. Or do you have some risk factors? With those two things in mind, are you seeing the care provider best suited for your needs? If you are low risk and otherwise healthy, then birthing with an obstetrician isn't necessarily the best place for you to birth, or the best person for you to birth with. It is a midwife. They are trained in normal, low risk, healthy pregnancy and birth. If you have risk factors, then being with an obstetrician or a perinatologist, someone who can meet your needs, that's necessary. So knowing that not everyone, it's just not this assumed norm that everyone should be with an obstetrician it needs to be shifted. And that's part of my goal here today. So if you're low risk, otherwise healthy, and you're planning to birth with an OB at a hospital, are you willing to consider what it might look and feel like for you to give birth with a midwife, either at the hospital or at a birth center or at home? Are you willing to entertain that? Are you willing to just explore the idea and see what options are available to you in your area? I mean, I live in Atlanta and we just have one birth center. So I'm not saying like everyone has access to a birth center at all. And home birth midwives aren't available to everyone everywhere for multiple reasons. So I'm not saying these options are available to everyone, but I am saying, have you considered your options? Have you looked to see what's available to you? Have you had those conversations with your practice, like who you're with? You might have just seen the OB, but they have midwives that you could see. So have you said, well, I want to see them unless I need to see the OB? I mean, just considering what's available to you in your situation. And if your decision to the questions I just asked, if your decision is rooted in fear because of the unknown, right? If you're like, well, no, I know I want an OB. What's that rooted in? Is it because you just don't know your options, or you haven't learned more, or you're fearful? If so, then I invite you to learn more about your options. By gaining knowledge, it'll decrease your fear surrounding your upcoming birth, and it'll increase your confidence. And that will help you have a better overall birth experience no matter who you choose to birth with. So just know if the questions I'm asking you to consider here, if your answer is rooted in uncertainty or just overall fear, I am encouraging you to seek more information, seek support, ask questions, stay curious, and then make a decision that is not rooted in fear or uncertainty. And you will feel happier and more confident as you prepare for your birth. Your care provider has the greatest influence over your birth outcome. I'll say it again. Your choice of care provider has the greatest influence over your outcomes for your pregnancy and your birth. So let's choose wisely. Let's choose the place we feel safest and that is best for us, each individual person. I want you to enter motherhood on the right foot. I want you to have the best chance at having the best birth available to you. It is my responsibility as an educator and as a doula to share this with you because I believe with this shift in the conversation that it can improve outcomes for everyone. And I hope that something I've said here has resonated with you, and I hope that you will just take even a piece of it and choose to do something differently. I just got distracted. My kids are downstairs and I was like, what did I hear? And it messed up my train of thought. So I understand there's lots of information out there. I'm here to flip the script on the conversation. I'm here to challenge the norms. I'm here to try and light the flame inside of you. And I'm here to just support you through that process. If something I've said here has stirred some curiosity in you, I want you to listen to that. I want you to listen to your intuition. Start fine-tuning your intuition now. It will serve you later once your baby is born, I promise. That is it for my lesson today. I do want to share with you that if you like what I'm saying here, if you're like, I need to learn more, I want to learn more, I want to share with you that I do have a childbirth prep course starting March 3rd. It goes for 6 weeks. We're going to meet just one time a week for about 1 to 2 hours. It's all online. It's going to be recorded so you can watch it later if you can't join us live. I'll be offering one-on-one support for my students so that if you have any questions along the way that you feel supported. I do believe with knowledge and support that you can decrease your fear and increase your confidence and have a happy, safe, healthy birthing experience. So if you're at all interested in learning more about that, I'll share the link here. There's also, I include with the course a 70 plus page course companion workbook that's jam-packed with more information. I also include free birth affirmation cards that you can print and hang around your birth space. And I also include a guided visualization script for kind of meditation and just helping you keep a positive mindset during this time, and so much more. So if you're at all interested in joining us, you'll get community, you'll get support from me, you'll get knowledge, and all of this can help you have a wonderful birth experience. I truly believe it. I would not be here telling you this if I didn't believe it. My goal is to help you enter motherhood with health and confidence, because with happy, healthy, confident moms, our family units are better, our communities are better, and our world as a whole is better. And I believe that in my core. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson today. I'm going to be back live next week talking about the birth planning process and how many people feel like birth plans are pointless. I'll be filling you up with that information then. So thank you so much for being here and have a wonderful Friday. Bye, guys.